Hi guys, how you all doing? Stranger Karen here. Welcome back to Karen Vibes, reading for the mature audience. I haven't been on for quite a while, having phone issues sometimes, but anyway, glad to be back. Glad to be back. Hope you guys are doing okay and enjoying your Sunday evening despite all the chaos and craziness that's happening around us. Alright, so we're still on our book, Minty Alley. Minty Alley. So we're still on our book, Minty Alley, written by C.L.R. James. Alright, so we're gonna get right into it. We're not gonna waste any time. So grab your cup of tea or your cool drink. Well, I don't know if anybody will be having tea now because the evenings are so hot, you know, warm. So maybe you'd be grabbing a cup of cold drink, alright, or a snack or something, and just sit back and enjoy the story that I've been reading. So if you are new, you can just visit my page, Karen Vibes, KarenVibes, that's with an exclamation sign, and you can follow my reading. So, and if you've been following me, you would see where I left off, where I stopped. Alright, so we had finished chapter 14 and we're now at chapter 15. So we're reading the book Minty Alley, written by C.L.R. James and narrated by me, moi, Karen Weir. So we're gonna get right into it without further ado. So chapter 15. Though there was not a single person in number 2 or out of it who believed such a thing possible, yet true it was. The nurse had made up her mind to tie Ben as tightly as possible, and once the fact was irrefutably established, the mind of everyone in the house was always occupied with one topic: the approaching wedding. So it seems that the nurse went to Ben is going to marry the nurse now. It pervaded the atmosphere. Scarcely a conversation began in which it did not crop up. They would sit in the kitchen after supper, whispering low, and the subject of the evening was the wedding, as it was the subject of the morning and the afternoon, and of every hour of the day. Maisie talked to Haynes about it at mealtimes. Miss Atwell, whenever she could catch him, and Phyllis, when she had a few minutes of leisure. Haynes avoided Mrs. Rose and thought it best when they did speak to him. Haynes avoided Mrs. Rose and thought it best when they did speak to keep as far from the subject as possible. Because Haynes was to tell him, said, me don't want to get mixed up in on the story. But none of the others thought so. At least they showed no notice. And Haynes soon learned that Mrs. Rose, far from resenting, welcomed discussions of this. The culminating indignity and injustice to which Ben intended to subject her. Phyllis would bring news which in her free style she broadcast as soon as she reached the yard. Oh, you ain't hear this? Mr. Ben was talking to Mr. Fung yesterday. He said that he'll leave because Miss Rose want to cut him with a knife and he's afraid for his life. He'll tell Mr. Thompson clerk so too. On another occasion. So she's saying it's on another occasion. He said that Miss Rose's business was going bad. She owes so much money and the nurse making money and a new woman always nicer than an old one. And Mrs. Rose been with him 18 years and that is enough for her. and that if she didn't bother him so, he would have stayed here, and she take him for a little boy and want to keep control over him like a little boy. And in going to marry the nurse, he help her to pass her exam, and she going to work, and he won't have to get up in the morning to make no old cake. Day after day, the items of news came to number 2. How Ben and the nurse were strolling on the seawall one evening, arm in arm. How they had been seen driving in the car to St. Philip's, and another night to Orange Vale. How the nurse had got a 2-day job, and how Ben used to accompany her to the gate of the house where she worked, and how they waved hands when they parted. To come to bump. All this and more that Haynes did not hear, though there was not much of which he was left ignorant. Once, after Phyllis, who picked up most of the news in town, had brought up and retailed some particularly interesting item to the family assembled in the kitchen, Mrs. Rose some time after said, "But Phyllis, how you have not told Mr. Haynes? Go in and tell him." Details of the preparation for the wedding began to come through. Sunday, the 6th, at the Church of the Rosary, Father O'Donoghue, I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly, was to marry them, and Dr. Price, with whom the nurse usually worked, was to give her away. A Mrs. Robinson, a seamstress of some repute, was making the dress. White Fuji trimmed with beads. "But how do you know all this, Maisie?" Haynes asked. "I know Mr. Haynes. The girl she buy the dress from in the store tell people, and we know plenty who Mrs. Robinson does so for. And when they go there, she tell them about it." Ben was not getting a new suit. At least, a new suit was not being got for him, for he had not 1 cent of his own to spend. He was getting married in his gray suit, but he had ordered a pair of patent leather shoes from a shop. They still lived in the nurse single room in Ligani Street. The nurse had sent her son to a friend's in Orange Vale. After the wedding, they were going to spend a week at the seaside. For the honeymoon, commented Miss Atwell in a tone like a note of exclamation, whereat Maisie laughed noisily. Only Mrs. Rose did not smile. When they came back, they would continue to live in Ligani Street, but at the end of the month, they would move into an apartment of 2 rooms elsewhere. Of Mrs. Rose, Haynes saw little. She had submitted to her fate with outward resignation. Once, she suddenly screamed out that she was going to collar him and ask him if he meant to leave her for that war. But Phyllis and Miss Atwell easily quieted her. Oh my God, Miss Rose getting off. Maisie took no part in the pacification and confided to Haynes that she would like nothing better than to see Mrs. Rose go to the nurse's room and the 3 of them have a grand fight. Why Maisie she not easy? Maisie not easy, people. But Mrs. Rose was not giving him up without effort. 3 times a day, the scent of incense burning in her bedroom poisoned the atmosphere. So she probably trying to work a spell to get him back. Lord have mercy. She was using all the signs she knew to win back Ben. But Ben was a man of science too. Oh my goodness. Science versus science, said Maisie, and derided Mrs. Rose and Ben and their traffic with the occult. Be careful, Maisie, said Haynes. Mrs. Rose may hear you. And is she here? So what if she here, Mr. Haynes? I'm ready for her. She can't do me anything. In addition to her own troubles, Mrs. Rose now had to deal with a Maisie fast becoming uncontrollable. As Miss Atwell put it, from the day the man leaves the house, she takes womanhood on her account. When it was not one thing, it was another. Very often, Maisie was wrong, but not always. Like most persons who are on the lookout for offense. Mrs. Rose frequently saw misdemeanor or provocation where there was none. The trouble for any arbitrator was to be able to distinguish There was the episode of the beef. One Monday afternoon, there was a hue and a cry about some beef which had been left over from Sunday. It had disappeared. This is not the first time, said the aspirated Mrs. Rose. Somebody always meddling with it, but this time they take nearly all. It isn't me, said Maisie emphatically. I ain't touched any. All right, I'll wait till Phyllis come and then I'll ask her. I am going to find out who it is today, said Mrs. Rose. Half an hour after Phyllis came up, Mrs. Rose met her at the kitchen door. Phyllis! Phyllis! Phyllis was scared at once. She almost dropped the basket. Yes, Mrs. Rose? You touched a beef I leave in the dish last night? Me, Mrs. Rose? Oh, God. Since I working with you, I don't want you to tell me all that. You touch it or you didn't touch it. What's in my cross here today? Answer yes or no. You touch it or you didn't touch it. I didn't touch it, Mrs. Rose. You know I didn't touch it. That's all I wanted to hear from you. She turned to Maisie. Then it's you little wretch. You eating me out. You don't do anything in this place, and the little piece of beef I have for people to eat, you steal it. But I tell you, I didn't steal it. I know nothing about it. She say she didn't take it. I say I didn't take it. She is a servant and you believe her. Haynes knew how this would end. It meant Mrs. Rose abusing Maisie. Maisie giving her back, and a quarrel which one day might end in violence. Miss Atwell was not there. Mrs. Hart, one of the boarders, observed the scene contemplatively from the dining room doorstep. Quite instinctively, he felt it his duty to make peace. Quite instinctively, he felt it his duty to make peace, as Miss Atwell would have done if she had been there. He had a short but sharp battle with himself. Whatever part he had taken in the upheavals at number 2 had been inadvertent and, in fact, against his will. Should he go out or not? He contemplated to himself. His old timidity was still strong upon him, but he knew the respect with which they listened to anything he said. After all, why shouldn't he? He went to the door. Mrs. Rose, don't worry about it. I know it is vexing, but you'll only get into a temper with Maisie and you will be unable to do your work. Before Mrs. Rose could answer, Maisie broke out. Yes, yes, everybody's against me. Hear what Mr. Haynes is saying now? Everybody prefer to believe the servant instead of me. I ain't take any beef. Her voice was shrill and tearful. I ain't take any beef, I say. Give me my clothes, let me go from this house. Better I die than to go and live in here. She leaned her head against the mango tree and sobbed from deep down in her chest. The whole yard stood still and listened to her. Haynes overcame the temptation to retire to his room. He could not leave things like that. Well, you see, Mrs. Rose, he said, not to say I think Phyllis has taken it, but perhaps Maisie hasn't taken it either. Of course, he continued, hurrying on. It's very mysterious, but you must give Maisie a chance. I don't like to hear those quarrels between you and her. I'm sorry I disturbed you, Mr. Haynes. No, Mrs. Rose, it isn't that. But Maisie is your only relation, and I'm sorry that you and she don't get on better. Give her a chance this time. Give her a chance. I don't want any chance, said Maisie, wiping her eyes. Chance what? I say I didn't take the beef. What? I am what? I am any cat to go snatching the stale beef out of a pot? Treat the gentleman with more respect, said Mrs. Rose, sharply to Maisie. All right, Mr. Haynes, she continued in a calmer tone. Perhaps she didn't take it, and I am judging her wrongfully. Maisie came into Haynes' room and sat down with her hands before her face. Now take care, said Haynes. When you go out, don't quarrel. Don't start that quarrel again. No, I wouldn't. But she whispered to him. But see here, people, listen to this. So Maisie, no, so listen. Let me read this back again. Maisie came into Haynes' room and sat down with her hand between her face. No, take care, said Haynes. When you go out, don't start that quarrel again. No, I won't. What? She whispered to him. I took the beef, you know. You took the beef? So you see all that drama she carrying now with both she not take it. Coming like some people. One piece of drama she put down on a ball crocodile tail, but she never take the beef. One Miss Rose to blame Phyllis. And say, she confessed to him and say she take it. That naughty girl. That Maisie is terrible. This is some people stay in real life, you know. Terrible. Yes, I was hungry and I took it. But I say I didn't take it. The coolie girl says she didn't take it. Why she must believe the coolie girl instead of me? Maisie is wicked. That's not nice. It's a wicked girl. So Maisie wants Phyllis to get the blame. She would not listen to Haynes. She would not listen to Haynes. I am Mrs. Rose's niece. Why is she always taking up for the coolie? Everything is only Phyllis. If I and the girl have a little disagreement, Phyllis always right. I always in the wrong. Phyllis is a servant. She shouldn't have more privilege than me. You see our mindset, how she thinks? Don't speak so loudly, Maisie. You see, Mrs. Rose says that Phyllis helps her, and you don't give her much assistance. But, Mr. Haynes, Phyllis working. She must work. What I must help Mrs. Rose for? For the scraps of food and clothes she give me? Ungrateful. Phyllis works very hard. She's a good girl. Good girl. She, Mr. Haynes, What you saying? Maisie laughed shortly. All those clothes you see her putting on a Sunday, I could get it if I want to get it, as she get them. She is the worst little prostitute in Victoria. Now, Maisie, but I have to speak about it, Mr. Hayes. If I don't tell you, you would know. All of you only holding up Phyllis as if she is a model. I am speaking the truth. That same Phyllis you're praising of so much, she used to live with Mr. Mill, the druggist, and Mr. Bennett, the assistant. And when old Mills find out he sacked Bennett, two of them the same time. All these lawyers and solicitors and clerks she passed from one to the other. Why made the mix up? A little before you come here, whenever you see a motor car drive up in the night, was Phyllis they come for. Everybody know her. Ask Mrs. Rose. It's only that stupid Sidiogo who see, sorry, it is only that stupid Siogo who see her and his eye catch fire. And he as if he want to get married. I tell you, the nurse was the first one and she will be the next. Marriage. Jesus wept. Look what marriage coming to. My God. So that is the end of chapter 15, and the one Maisie, she not easy. Maisie terrible in people. That terrible girl. You can see that she really don't like Phyllis. Alright, so that was chapter 15. The next we read will be chapter 16, and we'll be reading more about this upcoming wedding. Wedding is the talk of the town. Alright, so guys, thank you for listening. That was just a short reading. We read one chapter, and when we come back on, we will be at chapter 16. Alright, so thank you for joining me. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the week. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share to Karen Vibes. Right? Please remember to leave a comment. I'm dying to see a comment. Somebody leave a nice comment. Not anything negative. Try to stay away from negativity. Although I know you have people like that out there who are negative. But please, if you're enjoying my reading, please let me know. Leave a comment about any of the books that I've read so far. And let me know what you think. Alright, so thank you guys. Have a wonderful Monday week. Tuesday coming will be my birthday. I won't be doing anything big for my birthday. I think it will just be a quiet day. Might do a little work. It's also Labor Day as well. So yeah, I'm the birthday girl on Tuesday. I don't know, probably in a week I would buy myself something nice, treat myself. You know, because they always say if you don't treat yourself, who's going to treat you? You know? So, happy birthday to me when it comes on Tuesday. Probably later down in the week I'll probably get myself a cake or something. Anyway, guys, take care. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Tell others about it. Alright, keep safe. Bye. Peace out.